Hello, BookTube, and welcome to day 7 of May is for Magazines event. Today I'm going back to, well, not going back, we haven't done this, but I'm going further back in time, a little further than we have done so far, to the Gentleman's Magazine. It was a magazine that was started in 1731, and it ran actually to 1922. And it was a miscellany in some ways of a lot of things. It had essays, little notes, letters. There was political history, things that were happening at the time. It's like in 1776, within a month after the U.S. Declared independence, they had the Constitution printed. So they jumped on things quite quickly for the time. Now, it was Edward Evans was the editor, started it, and it was called Magazine. That's we think of now magazine as everything, but I think this was the first time it was applied to a periodical. And at that time, it's a French word that means a powder magazine, a warehouse, sort of a place where things are stored. Magazine, so it's storage of ideas, thought, and history in some ways. I don't know how much that was thought out at the time, but that's what it's turned out to be. Now, my local bookseller was able to get, I think, in a couple sections, he had probably most, if not 90%, of the complete run of the Gentleman's Magazine, and it'll be something that I'll be speaking about. It's the one that got away. Booksellers are like fishermen. We exaggerate our successes in some ways, and we'll always talk about the one that got away, or the many that got away. And to me, it was this that got away, because I would love to have had every issue that he had. So, but it was not to be. As it turned out, I didn't get any issues that he had. They were bound. They were ex-library, but they were bound. Bound issues. But I did pick up later in the late 1800s. They did a called Gentleman's Magazine Library. It was a whole series. I don't know how many in total. I haven't been able to find out because they're not numbered. And it is difficult to find out which each one has. They were selected topics, and it was articles out of basically from 1731 to 1868. This is it here, and it says a classified collection of the chief contents of the Gentleman's Magazine from 1731 to 1868, edited by George Lawrence Gome, FSA. This one is dialect, proverbs, and word lore. I've got 3 volumes, and there's more that I want to get at some point. This one is literary curiosities and notes. And these are the sort of white buckram. They're quite dirty, and here's brown buckram. This is a class bibliographical notes. And that one is from 1889, Eliot Stock. And the previous one, the classified collection, literary curiosities and notes, is 1888. And there's lots to read from here, and I think we will plunder this a bit. The one I'm going to read from is the first one I showed here of Dialect, Proverbs, and Word Lore, 1886. And it's a bit rough, but it's an ex libris Paul Ashby. Interesting book plate. Know nothing. 2 of them are from him. I ordered from the bookseller these 2. They're £5 each, with some shipping. But a friend of mine bought some on Gothic architecture, because they've done a collection of Gothic architecture and other architecture. So we got the shipping very, very cheap. And there's other ones that, as I say, I want to get some architectural ones, and ones on London. There could be 3 or 4 on London, and then there are some on different areas as well. So anyway, I'm going to read from, there's a section called Signs of Inns, etc., and this is on signposts. And it's an article that was in 1738. It gives the page numbers 526 and 527, so it doesn't give the issue. But it starts out, our countrymen display their genius and tempers in several respects upon their signposts, particularly in the mottos and inscriptions. Though nothing is more common in England than the sign of a cannon, especially in our seaport towns, I never saw the French king's inscription upon it, Ratio Ultima Regum, nor that of Oliver Cromwell, which I think infinitely more expressive, viz., O Lord, open thou my lips, and my mouth shall show forth thy praise. This I observe with pleasure because it would certainly be inexcusable at present, when we scorned to make the use of such brutish, unphilosophical arguments as the mouth of a cannon. No, the mouths of our ministers and ambassadors have been long found by experience to be more rational and prevailing. Several other peculiarities of a nation may be discovered by the choice of their signs and the inscriptions upon them. At first, their wit and art in drawing customers to their houses, as for instance, the best drink under the sun. Search all the town over, and you'll find good ale at the last. At a little house in the road in Hounslow, poor Jack striving to live. In that called the King's Road to Fulham, the snail is slow, and I am low, so what do you think? Pray stop and drink. Besides the skill and address in drawing customers to their houses, they likewise show a true judgment of the world, particularly in following inscription, which is very common both in town and country. Drink here and drown all sorrow, pray today and trust in tomorrow. Which might be applied to much higher people than poor alehouse tipplers, and I believe some of the best tradesmen in this town would be obliged to me if I could inculcate the same maxims into minds of their premier customers. Secondly, the religion and loyalty of the English people are equally discovered upon their signs and the models upon them. As to loyalty, what is so common as the sign of the king's head or the king's arms? And when we happen to have a popular Prince of Wales, like the Black Prince, to mention no others, the feathers are equally common and sometimes even predominant. I am not antiquarian enough to account how the bell originally happened to have its venerable motto inscribed upon it, Fear God and Honor the King, but it being grown trite, a jovial innkeeper, a great lover of poetry, desired a reverend and facetious divine his customer to let me start that again. I'll start the whole paragraph. I am not antiquarian enough to account how the bell originally happened to have its venerable motto inscribed upon it, Fear God and Honor King, but it being grown trite, a jovial innkeeper, a great lover of poetry, desired a reverend and facetious divine, his customer, to turn the same motto into verse. The man had but little room on his sign, and yet being postmaster insisted upon having his loyalty fully expressed, so that the worthy clergyman was obliged to leave out the fear of God, and happily executed the other part in the following beautiful tetrasic. Let the king live long, ding dong, ding dong. The people of England are a nation of politicians from the first minister down to the cobbler. and particularly remarkable for hanging out their principles upon the signposts. Of this, almost every street in London gives its abundant instances. But I think the most curious is at a little alehouse on the road to Greenwich, where there is a sign of a man, pretty corpulent, with his legs straddled upon two hogsheads, and this motto under it: "Stand fast, Sir Robert." I could not read this without trembling for the poor man, and I am really surprised that Mr. P-XT-N hath not yet taken due notice of it, for what can be more easy than to lay an information against the master of the house in the usual form, setting forth that he said that the said ale-housekeeper, being a seditious person, and wickedly and maliciously devising to vilify the the government of our sovereign lord the king, did on the day of publish or cease to be published a certain scandalous and seditious sign, viz. A corpulent man straddling between two hogsheads, innuendo Sir Robert Walpole. Stand fast, innuendo that he is at present in a tottering condition, against the peace of our sovereign lord the king, his crown and dignity, to the great scandal of those employed in the administration of his government in contempt of the laws, etc. 1,000 witnesses might be produced to prove that such a sign with such an inscription is actually exhibited in public view, and if the poor man should happen to be tried by a special jury, I am at a loss to guess what a defense he could make against Mr. Attorney General's innuendos. So that ends that. It's, like I say, it's a very short article, but yeah, it's just on signposts, and and where I'm not sure if people are familiar with this, but a lot of times if they don't want to say a person's name, they'll put or an expletive, say for instance, but in this case this was Mr. P, the first initial, and then they'll use a dash, and then XT, and then dash N. I'm not sure who that's referring to. I haven't looked it up. And then again where it says on the day dash, day of dash. So it could be like the 5th day of May. But they haven't put the date in. So as to, commit themselves to anything. Yeah, so the next section in here is signposts. Or signs of inns, etc. Which might be of interest to read. It's actually quite a bit longer. It's got some poetry. But yeah, maybe we'll come to that for tomorrow. But yeah, it's as I say, it's a gentleman's magazine, and as I say, hundreds of years of issues. I believe it came out every month, and maybe more frequently at times and less frequently at other times. Went through obviously many changes through the hundreds of years, but it's just amazing that it made it up to 1922. Anyway, I shall leave it there, and hopefully this will get uploaded. I've been having some trouble getting videos uploaded, so I wanted to try to see if I could get this done now before the morning. Take care, BookTube. Bye.